Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Thursday, February the 3rd. This is episode number 135. I am your host, rod.bluhm. Joining me today is my brother, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how are things going?
Well, it's going, Rod. We'll just keep
Coming
digging
down?
until we find ground.
Good luck with that. Joining us tonight is our guest, Mike Ristano. Mike, how are things going?
Good. Thanks both for having me on. It's exciting. It's gonna be a good night.
Absolutely. And Mike is the co-host of the Wednesday show. Follow that at Brownie Postgame. And Mike, your Twitter handle is at Bonzo1273.
Yep.
So everybody can check out your stuff on, on both of those Twitter handles. So we appreciate you joining us tonight for some Browns talk and more specifically some roster breakdown talk. And you guys are ready. We're going to dive in. But I guess before we do that, we're going to talk, at least a couple of us, about what we're drinking tonight with our Blitz beverages. And Mike, you're the guest. We always let the guest go first. So why don't you tell us about what you're drinking tonight?
So I tried to figure out which way I was going to go with it, because I was thinking I still have a few Christmas sales left, so I was going to go that route. But
I've thought about it because I got several left too. Yeah, I'm like, how long can I drink these on the show? But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you know what? As shameful as this sounds, I still have. Well, I did have a couple left over from last year that actually aged well, and I took care of those before I got into the new batch. But I think there are maybe 6 left of the case, so I'm kind of rationing them. But so I was gonna break one out, and then I just and some folks that follow me on Twitter, they know I just dove into Jefferson's Reserve bourbon. I dabble in a whole bunch of it, but I hadn't had the Jefferson's Reserve yet, and it's a good bourbon. So I figured, you know what, coming on your show tonight, that's what it's all about, and I'm going to break out the good stuff.
Excellent. So how are you drinking your bourbon?
So
go ahead.
No, so usually I put it on ice, but tonight, since it's a special occasion, I'm drinking it neat.
Okay. Just straight out of a glass.
Straight out of the glass.
Okay.
I could go Neanderthal on you and drink it right out of the bottle, but I don't think it's that kind of show.
That's necessary. I'm not going to try to say we're, like the classiest show around or anything, but, I mean, we appreciate you putting it into a glass for us.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool. That's cool. That's great. You're drinking the good stuff. So guys, I'm drinking. I don't know if I've had this on the show or not. It's let me explain a little bit here, because I've got this refrigerator and it's got all kinds of beer in it. I'm not actively buying beer right now because I've got so much beer in the refrigerator, and honestly, I'm not really drinking a lot of beer right now because I'm trying to drop a few pounds. I'm trying to do some exercising and stuff, and I'm really not drinking beer except when I'm on the show, and an occasional beer if I do something else, go out or something like that. So
yeah.
So I'm probably going to be repeating beers, and at the pace I'm drinking it, it's probably going to be around for the next 5 years too, or well, at least till it gets warm out, and then I'll drink it a little faster. But anyway, so I'm drinking an Arche 709er, which is the double New England IPA, 16 ounce can, 8% alcohol by volume, and it's just really good. Since I had an Arche New England IPA up at Arche, they had one that had some little touch of lime in it, and it was just really good. It's kind of turned me on to the New England IPAs, and it's just good stuff. So yeah, I'm enjoying that tonight. Jeff is sitting this one out, so we're going to move right into our next segment, and that is where Mike you get the chance to tell us about your Browns fandom, kind of where that started, and high points, low points, on whatever you'd like to share with us.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I originated in New York, and my dad got transferred to Cleveland. I think I was 8 going on 9. And, I was a fan of football, just, watching it with my dad. But I still wasn't at that age yet where, like, I had picked up on a team. And when we moved to Cleveland, obviously it's such a close-knit community. And I was actually in the West Burbs in North Olmsted. So, hop, skip, and a jump to Cleveland. And that's where the fandom started. And then my friend, and actually my dad's good friend, actually worked in the front office back then. My buddy actually is with ESPN now. He does the College Game Day. But so I really had a great introduction, if you will, to Browns football, because I got to watch the games on the field. There was one, I know we were talking about before we went live, talking about going down to the Dayton Air Force Base and the Cub Scouts, but that was another thing at the time. We were the color guard for a Browns game, and I never forget this. I sat on a metal chair on the 10-yard line to watch the game. Before the game, I had a catch with Ozzie Newsome and Tom Cousineau. And back then, it was the time where, you didn't have to have quote unquote field passes or whatever. If you knew somebody, you were on the field, nobody cared. I remember, standing next to the kickers while they were warming up and stuff. So it sort of evolved from there. And I sort of had a cool start, and the rest is history. One of my funny stories, because I know several people always talk about the Troughs at Old Municipal, and I remember my first introduction to them. It was a Steeler game, and I remember I was just going to the bathroom. I was 9 probably at that point, and I just remember commotion on the other end, and then a Steeler man in overalls came by me as I was peeing, and that was like my first introduction to the Pittsburgh-Cleveland rivalry at the time. So a lot of cool memories. There's plenty more too. I just can't recall them at the time, but yeah, that's how it started for me.
I would say it's pretty darn cool. Thanks for sharing that with us, Mike.
Absolutely.
All right, so we usually talk about a little bit of Browns news, guys. You know what? In the past week or so, the main thing that's come up has been this Hugh Jackson stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you guys each a minute or two to just give your thoughts on this, and then we'll move on, because this has been like all over news and Twitter. So I don't want to belabor the point on Hugh, but if you guys have something to say, something you want to get out, I want to give you a chance. So Jeff, why don't you give your thoughts on this Hugh Jackson stuff?
I think Hugh Jackson had 3 years in Cleveland to tell us what he had to say, and right now he's irrelevant. I don't really care what he has to say.
Excellent. Mike, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I when Brian Flores came out with his suit, and the tweets came, or that, I'm sorry, not the tweets, the text messages came out, with Belichick and the part of Ross, having him come to the yacht to meet a quarterback, which later we found out, I was reading yesterday, was actually Tom Brady. And, it's a 60-page filing. So with a lot of fact in there, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. And, it's when you look around the league, I mean, there's 32 teams and there's one minority coach. So, things do need to change. I totally agree with that. And you came out, as he always does, but the way that he framed it was, and look, from what we understand, Flores has receipts of, or something of, him trying to say, hey, Ross, that is, I'll pay you X amount of dollars to tank. And again, maybe he doesn't, but it seems like he does. And I watched his attorneys on Get Up the other day, and it was pretty. It looked like they definitely have some backing there. But anyway, back to you. So then he comes out and he says what he says, and I actually tweeted about it. And I think Rod, you and I actually had a little interaction about it as well.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, okay, well, wait a second, maybe he does have something, because the way he framed it, he made it sound like he literally had receipts of being paid to tank. That's the way he came out and he said it. And for him to then go on ESPN last night and essentially embarrass himself is what I thought, because I'm sitting here waiting to see, like, oh, okay, he's going to help build a case for what Brian Flores is trying to stand up for, and that really wasn't the case, and it was I don't know, it was pretty embarrassing to me. I mean, he laid out the plan, and I think today, I don't know if you saw, he had provided Keyshawn and maybe Stephen A. I think that was the show, with a receipt that he received a $750,000 bonus at the end of the year, but he didn't know what it was for. But there was nothing in there that said, this was for X. It was just an end of the year bonus. So
they're going to put that in the memo line anyway,
right?
Even if that were the case. Exactly.
So it's again, much to do about nothing, and it's a shame, really, is for me. I thought, because you've got a guy that just won 9 games in a row, was fired, and then you have the mishap with the Giants and the text from Bill Belichick, and then you think, oh, okay, you actually has receipts, and he's gonna help with this case. And instead, he embarrassed himself, and I think that it just wasn't. He should have just stayed in.
It's in the
background. Here's the thing. Here's why I think Hugh Jackson is irrelevant, because no matter what the issue is, no matter what the topic of conversation is, Hugh Jackson is going to find a way to make it about nothing but Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
And we take an important conversation and we turn it into a bunch of stupid things, out of Hugh's mouth that have absolutely nothing to do with the issue at hand. So, you just got to block out his noise and focus on what the real problem is in the NFL. The real problem in the NFL, I think, is that, these guys just don't get opportunities.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the NFL needs to figure that out, fix it.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, completely. We could probably talk for a half hour about the Rooney Rule and why it's not working and things like that, guys. But let's move on. I think we agree on Hugh Jackson. So we left off with tight end at the end of the last show. So we're going to continue with our roster breakdown. Again, we're kind of looking at this from a viewpoint of kind of who we think might be back and who won't be back, but also from a position of roster, groupings and also trying to analyze need, where the Browns are going to have needs and, where they might be looking to create some money too. So in no particular order, we're just going to go offensive line and start with center. It's just what I wrote down. And Browns have 2 centers on the roster, J.C. Tretter and Nick Harris. J.C. Tretter's 31, due $8.25 million in 22. He'd be a free agent in 23. Browns can save that $8.25 million by cutting him or trading him or whatever, prior to the season or I think pretty much any time. So if they so desire. Nick Harris, 23 years old, is due $895 in 22, $1 million in 23, and some of these figures are rounded, and they can cut him if they want to save that $895, and he would be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. So those are the two guys, and wanted to get your thoughts on. I guess we'll just take them both at the same time, or whatever you guys would like to do. So Mike, we'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, I mean, I thought in the games that Nick Harris stepped in, I thought he played well. I believe he was drafted to be the future there. Whether the future is 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I'm not sure how many more years Tretter has on his contract. Is it one more?
It's just 22. He'd be a free agent in
1 year.
In 23.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's getting up there. I don't know if they're gonna allocate money to re-signing a 30-plus center. So I think that Nick Harris is going to be the future at that position. I thought he played well in the games that he played, in the spots that he played in. But yeah, Tretter is one of the best in the league. So hopefully, and I know we'll get to the other positions, but hopefully they'll all be able to stay healthy and put together a good season up front.
Yeah. So you expect both those guys to be back?
Yeah,
that's your thought right now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Nick Harris played better in his limited time, in 21 than he did in 20? You think he showed growth?
I thought so. I thought he played well. I mean, he wasn't great, but I think that you saw some maturation at that position for him. And I guess what you never really know until you take the training wheels off, and if he is the guy and Tretter goes after next year, then have at it, Nick, and then we'll see the rubber meets the road at that point. But
yeah. So Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I think Nick Harris played his natural position this past season. Primarily, he wasn't asked to do a lot of work at guard like the year before last. And I think he kind of settled in and played pretty well. I mean, he was the highest rated backup on the Browns line. And from a future standpoint, he may or may not be the long-term answer, but I think there's a reason that Andrew Berry drafted him a couple of years ago, right? It was Andrew Berry that drafted him, right? Yeah. 2 years ago. So you have to think about the long term of JC Tretter, who, give him credit for always answering the call. But I don't think he practiced pretty much all season, because of various ailments. So, it'll be interesting to see if in fact they think they can get another year out of him. Or if they just choose to bring in another backup or whatever they choose to do at the center position. But, if barring injury, I think the Browns are in pretty good shape at center.
Okay, so we're not going to make this a draft show, but, Jeff, you've talked about Tyler Linderbaum, potential if he's there at 13, how it could be hard to pass on him. What are your thoughts there if he is there and the Browns feel like this is a guy who could be, a potential Hall of Fame center? Do you think that makes a decision for them if they feel like he's the guy and that they felt like they could address receiver with their next, 2 picks? Do you think they would be confident going with Linderbaum and Harris and cutting Tretter at that point? Would you start Linderbaum as a rookie?
Well, I think that would depend on how they played in training camp, but I think that there's every likelihood that if you draft Tyler Linderbaum at 13, that he ends up being your starting center from day one, and he goes on to have a Joe Thomas type of career. I believe that. It's a bit of a outside the comfort zone move, I think, for the Browns to draft a center that high. But I mean, he's an extraordinary player, and you have to look at what's there. What your options are. The same would be, the case if one of the top defensive ends fell. You'd have to get that guy. So I think if Linderbaum fell in our lap and there wasn't somebody that the Browns really were in love with more at that position, they felt like they could get a receiver who was, instead of a number one, it was a 1A with their next pick. I think that makes the decision on J.C. Tretter pretty easy. You move on from him and you keep Nick Harris as your second center, and I think either way you're in great shape this year, and if you end up with Linderbaum, man, you're set for a decade probably.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk some guard, guys. Browns have several guys listed as guard on their roster. I guess two guys aren't going anywhere, and that's Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. I'll throw their numbers out here, but they really don't matter that much. Bitonio is 31 years old. In 22, he'll be making $4.5 million. In 23, he'll be making $12.5 million. I really didn't go beyond that to look at the out and all that stuff, but he's signed through to where he'd be a free agent in 26. I know there's some the Browns have an out in there somewhere, a few seasons down the road. Wyatt Teller is 27 years old. He will make $2.75 million in 22 and $14.75 million in 23, and he's also signed through 26. Similar type deal. Drew Forbes, 25, set to make $965,000 in 22 and 23. Free agent in 24. I guess he's actually played a tiny bit here and there, but Drew Forbes has been a guy who we've kind of, still been waiting on to see, what kind of potential he has, I think. And the other two guys, I guess, are probably on futures contracts, and that's, I don't even know how to say the first guy's name, Froholt and David Moore. Froholt is, and I'm probably saying that wrong, is 25 years old. Signed for one season at $895, and David Moore's 23 years old for one season at $705. So those are the guys. I don't even know how much wiggle room there is on any of those guys, because Bitonio and Teller are going to be here. It's a matter of, Drew Forbes can be cut to save that $1 million if they feel like they have somebody better. And the other two guys are, the same thing. They're fighting for a spot. So how do you guys see the guard room? And Mike, I'll let you start out talking guard.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a starting standpoint, and you said it, both of them are signed through 26. Whether Bitonio gets there remains to be seen. But I think for at least the next 2 years, at least, you'll see that tandem together. And then to your point, I think it goes to, who's backing up that position. And, you look at, you got Froholt, and, we really didn't hear much about him. And, he was on the practice squad, and he was, one of those, COVID signings. And you had Drew Forbes, who and you alluded to it, you're just waiting to, you're just waiting to see something. And, we haven't seen it yet. But then, I mean, you look at the kid that is now in LA, and I don't know why his name is escaping me, but we gave up on him pretty early. Austin Corbett, and he turned out to be a solid player for them. So, maybe we'll see that magic come out of Drew Forbes. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, and those are the only two really that are. And I know Blake Hans played a little bit of guard here and there. He's unrestricted free agent. So I mean, after those two and really Forbes, I mean, the cupboard's bare at that position. So it'll be interesting to see if I think they definitely will draft that position in the mid rounds. But it'll be interesting to see if they go out and get somebody, in free agency, and not, obviously not a big name guy. We got those two guys, but just some added depth.
Yeah. I mean, they still have, there's potential they'd be in talks with Hansen, and I'm blanking on the other guy's name.
Hubbard's out there too.
Well, Hubbard and who's the other guy who played
David Moore? Oh. Who played some guard?
Well, maybe guard and never mind. Go ahead, Jeff. Why don't you give your thoughts on guard, and I'll try to find the name of the person I'm thinking of here.
Well, I think the Browns are set at guard. And
I was thinking of Michael Dunn is who I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Michael Dunn. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I can see him bring either one of those guys a shot, but we'll see what the market is for him. Yeah.
You know what? I feel like as long as Bill Callahan is around, we're going to get high-level guard play no matter who we plug in. If one of our starters misses some time, we're young in the backups there, but I think we have talented enough guys that have shown that they can step in and give us an adequate effort. The guard position is really not a concern on this team. And yeah, it wouldn't hurt to add a veteran depth piece, but ultimately the effectiveness of that line is going to be determined by the tackle play. And, that's where you really saw problems because of injuries last season. So I feel really good about guard. I'm glad those two guys are locked up long term. And, even if we were to just draft a guy day 3 developmental piece, and that's all we went into the season with in the fall, I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, so let's move on to tackle, and let's just talk about Jack Conklin first, because he's 28. He's scheduled to make $12 million in 22 and be a free agent in 23, and the Browns can save that $12 million, I believe, with a post June 1st cut. So I think it's. I guess there's a couple ways to look at it. Is how is he recovering, and what's he going to be able to do as far as playing, and to the Browns feel like they can do something else at that position to get a starter, I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let you guys just talk about Conklin, because I think he's really probably the biggest piece on this offensive line, to figure out him and his position. Let's put it that way, that starting right tackle. So Jeff, what do you think about Conklin and right tackle?
Yeah, I really think it's a health question, and when he's ready to go. Back from, I think, the patellar tendon injury. So, is he going to miss a few games early in the season and then, be back to the Jack Conklin that we expect? Then in that case, we can probably, ride that out for a few weeks. But if his recovery period looks like it's going to be a little bit longer, then it does kind of force the Browns' hands. I'm really hopeful that we're going to find a veteran swing tackle that can take those snaps early in the season. And if for some reason Conklin can't come back or isn't playing at the same level, that guy is capable enough to be able to fill in, at least in the short term, because I really don't think we're ready to hand those snaps over to James Hudson. Maybe at some point next year. I mean, he started to come on later in the year, but we really need to have somebody experienced there. And look at what happened with Jed Wills. I mean, his injury kind of lingered all year as well. So that's going to be, to me, that's going to be one of the key free agent signings this year, I think, is finding that veteran swing tackle that can step in.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to pass it over to you, so you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
So what I was going to say is I agree with Jeff, especially going out and finding that swing tackle. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Chris Hubbard if they're interested in bringing him back. I know he was hurt. I don't know where he is in his recovery. But the interesting thing, and I don't know if you guys saw it, I believe it was early yesterday. I think Drew Rosenhaus came out and said that Conklin was ahead of schedule, and he believes that he'll be ready for training camp. Now, coming off a patellar injury like that, I mean, you look at the statistics, and it's not good for careers after you tear that. But it could be agent speak. I mean, I could see if it was the free agent year that to pump that up. But I guess it remains to be seen. But hey, if that's the case, I mean, that's great news for us. I'll be ecstatic if Jack Conklin is even there for game one. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting. I mean, if he does come back and we could start off solid like that, I think that would be great. I think it might be a little excitement a little too early, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm interested again to see if they have any interest in bringing Hubbard back. But I guess we'll see. But yeah, I'm interested to see as these months progress, what we're hearing and maybe seeing in the way of Jack Conklin and his rehab.
Yeah, I think they really need a guy like Hubbard. Whether it's Hubbard or not. Because like you said, it might depend on his health as well. He's had a couple of seasons where he's had these injuries and stuff. So yeah, but he's played very well when he's been out there. Considering how poorly he played his first season here, and and how bad everybody thought he was, he's really played well since then when he's been able to play. And I think the Browns, with the issues they had at tackle this season, are going to really, I think they're going to focus in on that position because, like Jeff was saying, guard is in good hands, and really center, I think regardless of how they go at center, it's going to be good too. So I think they'll be concentrating on making sure that tackle is a stronger position this season. So Conklin's the question mark. I mean, if they really don't like where his health's going, they can cut him, post June 1. And, I'm not sure how all that works with an injury or whatnot, but, if they were able to cut him to save the $12 million, then they could certainly bring, another guy in or two, to help out, and potentially, maybe address that position in the draft, if they feel at draft time that that he's not headed in the right direction. But Jed Wills and James Hudson are both 22 years old, and Jed's making a little bit more money than James Hudson is, about 3 times as much. But they're both around for through 2024. That's assuming James Hudson continues to progress and everything like he, I think he did last season. So, but I guess we'll see what they do there. I think it'll be interesting. So,
let me throw out a name real quick, Rod, and these kind of predictions can come back and bite me, but I'm just going to throw out a name, and we'll see where this one sticks. Right tackle, who I think could probably be that guy that we're looking for in free agency, is the Raiders' Brandon Parker. He's 26. He was a 3rd-round pick in 2018, and he's probably going to make about $5 million a year as an experienced right tackle. I think he started 17 games last year for the Raiders. Somebody like that is who we're looking for to be that swing guy and the insurance policy if Conklin can't go.
Yeah.
Let's see how far off I am on that one.
Yeah, yeah. It would be nice to bring a guy in with experience like that, definitely. So, couple of positions we haven't covered yet. I probably should have talked about fullbacks when I talked about running backs, but I had them listed separately, so we're going to talk about them separately, guys. Andy Janovich, 28 years old, is due $1.6 million in 22, free agent in 23, and the Browns can save the 1.6 by cutting him. Johnny Stanton is on an $825,000 contract for 22. What do you guys think happens at fullback? Do you think Janovich is back again for the 1.6 in 22?
I think personally, Janovich is a Stefanski guy, and
it's not that much money, right?
Yeah, it's not that much, but I don't see him going. But to be honest with you, I mean, in the spots that Stanton played here and there, I mean, I don't know if you're really losing that much going from one guy to the other. But to your point, I mean, it's not that much of a difference monetarily wise. So they'll probably just stick with Janovich, I would think.
Yeah. You agree, Jeff? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a huge position of importance except on those few plays where you need them.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, long snapper extraordinaire Charlie Hughlett is 31 years old. He's set to make $1.25 million, and he's going to be a free agent in 23. What the Browns going to do? Are they going to extend Charlie Hughlett?
They're going to ride him one more year, and then Mac Wilson's going to snap.
You think?
No, just kidding.
Jeez. Any thoughts on Charlie, guys? They'll probably re-sign him, won't they?
Yeah, they'll ride him out.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk some defense, guys. Starting with defensive tackle. We'll just take these guys one at a time, try and make it a little bit more clear. I'm going to bring up Malik Jackson. He's a free agent, guys. He's 35. He made his base salary was $1.1 million. He had bonus money in 21. But he had bonus money. I'm not sure what his total salary was, but do you guys think the Browns are going to pursue Malik Jackson with all that's happening at defensive tackle? And we may have talked about him a little bit with the free agents, Jeff. So why don't I get your thoughts on Malik Jackson, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they bring him back. I think after the McDowell situation, that position just got really thin. I mean, looking at the roster, I mean, you have Elliott and Tommy Tajia. There's nobody else when I was looking at the roster that is going to be back.
Yeah, I think everybody else is free agents. I believe so. Yeah, and so go ahead.
Yeah, and so you wonder if they could get him back. I mean, if they liked what they saw last year, and I'm trying to remember what his PFF grade was last year. I probably have it around here. Somewhere, but I think he was towards the bottom, and he was 34th at a 44.4. So I mean, there wasn't really, he was a great player, when he was younger, especially when he was with the Eagles. But
yeah, he's getting up there.
Yeah, he is getting.
You don't expect a ton of snaps or a ton of production, but no. The Browns are going to need some guys. So depending on what else they do there, I guess. So
and that's what I was thinking too, because when I was looking at the second round prior to the McDowell incident, I thought for sure there could be a chance that, they look at someone like Daniel Falale at right tackle. I think he's going to be he's a stud. He playing the play action RPO stuff, multiple schemes, big kid. But
He can play a little fullback too.
Yeah. And even
like 400 pounds.
Yeah, he is.
He's only 380.
And then you have the
must be on Slim Fast.
Yeah.
He's 380 the last time he let anybody weigh him. Yeah.
Hey.
What is he now? But and I like the kid from Ohio State as well. Although I think he projects more as a left tackle. But I guess the point that I was making is I almost feel like once the McDowell incident happened, we went from possibly going offensive tackle in the second round to, you and it depends on it if there's one of those stud edge guys left there, but you might have to go interior defensive lineman early in the second round. So that was one that made me scratch my head just for obvious reasons, and I hope he seeks and gets the help that he needs. But that really, the cupboard's bare at defensive tackle at this point.
Well, let's talk about Malik Mcdowell just briefly. He's 26 years old. We know his history and we know what happened. He's an exclusive rights free agent, guys. So the Browns didn't have to cut him, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the whole. We talked about RFAs on the show last time, and I had to look that up. Okay, to be versed in RFAs and everything, because it's not my job. So, with the tenders and everything. So, I'm kind of curious. The Browns put out a statement and everything, but I guess we're pretty confident they're going to part ways with Malik McDowell, and it makes sense. But I guess with an ERFA, I guess they just don't have to do anything in order to part ways with him. Would that be the understanding that you guys have with that?
Yeah, I don't think at that point. I think they could just
not exercise
part ways
option
and
on him, right?
Bygones be bygones kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Then it leaves Jordan Elliott and Tommy Togiai, who Elliott's 25. He's due, $1 million in 22, 1.2 in 23, and a UFA in 24. And Togiai is due just slightly less, $825 in 22, $940 in 23, and a free agent in 2025. And, they can both be cut, but I think they're both feeling pretty safe about, the fact that they're probably going to make this team next year, unless the Browns bring another 20 defensive linemen in like they did last year. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So Jeff, any other thoughts on defensive tackle?
I think we've said it recently that last year they threw a bunch of players at this position just to see who would stick, and I got to believe that they'll do that same thing again. That if that worked last year, it's probably going to work again this year. You're going to see 8 or 10 guys in camp. And they're going to see what cream rises to the top. And, just from a draft perspective, real quick, you got Jordan Elliott, going into his third year, Togiai going into his second year. Those guys were both mid-round picks that you're developing for this position. Anybody you take in the draft now is not going to leapfrog those two guys. So you either have to sign somebody in free agency that, is a more of a veteran player like Malik Jackson, or you have to hope that those two guys pan out, and it's going to be a crapshoot to see who ends up, getting most of the snaps in that position for the second year in a row.
Yeah, I agree.
I would have to look at the free agents, defensive tackles, because, man, you go back to last year, and there was, it was kind of questionable as to whether Togiai was going to make this team with all the guys they had, and even Jordan Elliott. There were people who didn't think Jordan Elliott was going to make this team. So we're down to 2 guys on the team that were kind of about making the team even last year. So it makes me feel like the Browns are going to address this, some way other than just bringing in free agents off the streets and drafting some guys in the mid rounds. I think they're going to have to do something.
I agree. And we were talking about this actually on our show a couple of weeks ago, I think, or this past week. The days just seem to fly by. But like you look at Pittsburgh, for example, and you've got Cam Hayward on the inside, and he's such a force. And his disruption is what leads to TJ Watt seemingly looks like he's in the backfield every other play at least. And
he's not doing it on his own. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's if you said to me, what's the one position on defense that you think if you got a bona fide stud that would change the dynamic of the defensive line, and it would be the defensive tackle position, because if we could get somebody that could just be disruptive, I think Miles eats all day long, and then if you're lucky enough to get Clowney back, I mean that you're talking about a recipe for disaster. And I only hope that we see that. I don't know. I haven't even looked to see who's out there in free agency, if there are any impact guys like that out there. It's something I'm gonna have to do and take a peek. But
well, I'm looking at the list here. The thing is there's a boatload of them. I mean, there's gobs of D tackles who are free agents right now. But just scanning down the list, very few of them played even 50% of the snaps. So it's not a position where, guys are out on the field the whole game. They rotate with the younger guys and so forth. So, you need to be 4 you can find that guy. Yeah, I don't know. You can find that guy. Even if you're willing to throw all kinds of money. I mean, the list runs from Akeem Hicks and Ndamukong Suh, down to, I don't know.
35-year-old Calais Campbell,
Sheldon Day. Let's see who else is on here.
Richardson's out there too, huh?
Yeah, Sheldon.
I'm sure
Richardson's
he'd love to come back
on here. Danny Shelton's on here. You name it. There's all kinds of guys that they can bring in, and I think that's probably what's going to happen. Just like I said, like last year.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting, guys. So defensive end. The Browns have Miles, who, he's Miles is 27, and God, is that right? I have that in 22. He's going to make his base salary is $1 million. That's what I have down. In 23, it's $17.25 million. So I think in 22 he he's living off the bonus money, I guess, if that's right.
I don't know. He's got a guaranteed salary of $1 million, but I mean,
that's just his base salary. Yeah,
his cap number is almost $13 million.
Yeah, because of
so he's got a prorated bonus of like $12 million.
Right. So anyways,
he's not going anywhere for
Miles is
a long time.
He's trying to see what I wrote down. Yeah, through 20. He signed through 24, I believe, right? Through 2024. That's what I have written down, I think. So, or
actually 25. 26.
26, I think.
Yeah.
I think my note through 24 is that he's pretty much guaranteed to be here through 24. The Browns have outs pretty much after 24 if,
They
guys
do.
Trust me. People are going to say, "Oh, well, we don't want Miles to go anywhere." Well, yeah, but people are going to think I don't like Miles if I say anything. But the Browns have an out after 24 with Miles because he's going to be making a ton of money, and if something happens to him, his production's not there, he's injured, whatever, then they've got an out after 24. Okay, so I'm just putting numbers out there, guys. That's it. Okay.
Just here are his cap numbers. In 24, his cap number's $32 million.
Mm-hmm.
In 25, his cap number's $27 million. and then 26 his cap number is 28.5. Got a $20 million base salary in 2026.
Yeah, and I think those the last 2 years are pretty much not guaranteed. If I looked at it properly, I think that's the way I looked at it. So yeah. So anyways, it's Miles, and Curtis Weaver is signed for another year at $705,000, and Curtis Weaver's 24. We'll see if he has anything on a second go around, and then Jeff and I already talked about Clowney and Tack McKinley. They're both UFAs. We don't know if Tack will be recovered from that Achilles or not, and be able to play in 22, but that's one question. And then we just don't know what's going to happen with Jadeveon Clowney, whether he's going to be in in the Browns price range, or whether he's going to sign a big deal and go elsewhere. So So how do you guys assess the defensive end room for the Browns at this point? And Jeff, we'll let you kick this one off.
Well, the great thing is we have Myles Garrett. The problem is we don't have much after that.
Yeah, not much at all right
as
now.
As you said, with Clowney sort of wanting to get paid, and rightfully so, and Tack McKinley, I think not in the picture. This is an area that I think the Browns really need to look to the draft. This is a good year to bring in some depth there. And they're going to need somebody. So, even if they were to bring Clowney back on a short-term deal, they would need to be developing somebody. So, it's a little bit scary. The whole D line is a little scary. Like I said, other than Miles, what the line's going to look like next year.
Mike, anything to add to that?
No, it's when I was taking down some notes, when I knew what we were going to be discussing tonight, and you knew that these positions were a little on the empty side, but at least for me, I didn't realize how empty until I'm staring at my iPad, and literally, and you guys both just said it. I mean, you've got Myles Garrett and you've got Curtis Weaver, and then
That's it.
Clowney's unrestricted free agent. Sheldon Day's an unrestricted free agent. Gustin is a restricted free agent. And then Tack with the Achilles, a UFA, and then Odenegbo is a RFA. But I mean, you look at that, and the only two names that excite you are Clowney and McKinley, and like you alluded to, we don't know what McKinley is going to look like with the Achilles, and I'm probably at 70% thinking Clowney is going to come back, but I mean, it's not guaranteed. He definitely could go elsewhere. And then, I mean, at that point, like, that's what I'm hanging my hat on, to be quite honest with you, is the fact that he's coming back. If he doesn't come back and we're left with Myles Garrett and nobody until we know who the somebodies are.
Well, especially with the DT situation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's frightening. It really is.
Yeah. It's going to be tough to build an entire defensive line, around Myles.
Yeah.
And right now they need like 4 or 5 more guys, right now. It's a bunch. So anyway, let's go to linebacker, because linebacker guys looks a little bit better.
Yeah,
it really does.
I agree.
Linebacker, Anthony Walker's 29, and he's a free agent. Okay, he made $2.7 million in 21. I don't know if he's going to come back or not, but let's look at the other guys, because the other guys most of them are young and most of them are signed. For at least a year or 2 or 3. So Tony Fields, who we really haven't seen yet, 23 years old. He's due under $1 million for each of the next couple of years, and he's signed through 24. Mac Wilson's 24 years old, and he's got $1 million due to him in 22, and he would be a free agent in 23. Browns can save that $1 million if Mac doesn't make the cut next year. Jacob Phillips is 23 years old. Do $1 million in 22, $1.1 million in 23, and he is signed through. Well, he would be a free agent in 24. Takitaki is the old man on the roster at linebacker at 27. He's got one more year, $1 million due, and then he'd be a free agent in 23. JOK is 23 years old, and he's due $1 million this year, $1.2 million next year, and he'd be a free agent in 25. And then the Browns have Willie Harvey signed for a season at $825, and he's 26 years old. So, this sounds a little bit better, guys. And I know everybody talks about linebacker being a weakness on the Browns, but you look at you just look at JOK and how Jacob Phillips was coming on at the end of last season, and you really got to feel like the Browns have some building pieces at linebacker. I heard some good things about Tony Fields before he, got hurt last year. So you got to feel like maybe he's a guy who can be a developmental piece down the road too. I don't know about Mac's future. Takitaki has played pretty well, and I think Willie Harvey's probably a special teams guy. But let's get your take on this. So Jeff, you want to start this one off?
All I can say is thank God for JOK, because he pretty much single-handedly rescued the linebacker room last year.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Jacob Phillips come back and play toward the end of the year, like you said. And I think with those two guys, you got to feel pretty good about, going into the next season. It wouldn't hurt to add another veteran linebacker if that's Anthony Walker or somebody like him. I think that would help a lot. But I feel good about where we are at linebacker.
Yeah. So what do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I agree. How many years have we been waiting for JOK? Just that linebacker that can run sideline to sideline and the quick twitch. And you just got to smile when you talk about the kid, excuse me. And like you said, Jacob Phillips, he played 4 games, but he played well. Like if you look at his PFF grade, he was 69.7 in coverage. So, he's able to handle the tight end. JOK was about the same in terms of coverage. And as we know, the tight ends they kill us year in and year out. I think they can improve in that part of the game, most definitely. And what's funny is I think, and I'll be the first to admit that I was one of those very hard on Mac Wilson kind of guys, no doubt about it. But I almost feel like last year, Mac Wilson, they found his sweet spot in how many snaps a game that he could play to spell guys and play at a high level. And I know the PFF scores aren't the be all end all, but you look through 13 games, JOK was 6th on the defense and he had 597 total snaps. And then you look at Mac Wilson, who came in as the 7th best PFF score, and he played 13 games. He had 193 snaps. But when you do the math, he played 8, 9, 10, maybe the most snaps here and there per game. And he played really well. His tackling grade was an 89.5. So I agree. I think if Anthony Walker is into it, I think you bring him back one more year. I thought he played at a high level for his age. And Takitaki, and it's so funny because you think about when he got drafted. And meanwhile, out of the guys that are signed, he's the oldest, which is I didn't even realize that. But
yeah.
And he's another kid that is good in the spelling guys. He was right around the same pace at Mac Wilson in terms of total snaps. I think he was at 280 or something like that. So yeah, and I'm interested. What do you guys think? I'm excited to see a little bit more of Tony Fields. I really he was sort of hyped up a little bit, and I'm interested to see as we go if the kid can play.
Yeah, I am too, because I heard some good things about him. I would say last training camp. Thinking that he was going to actually play more than he did. I think with the injury and everything. I don't even know how much we actually saw him last year. I don't think it was much, but But I hope he comes in healthy and we can see him play, more than just a special teams role. Maybe whether it's even in just preseason games, just so we get an idea of what he brings to the team. Because right now he's just a name on paper, I think, to most of us. So, do you guys want to do corners and safeties real quick, or do you want to wrap things up?
I'm good if you guys are good.
You guys good? There's not that many to go through. So, are you game, Jeff?
Sure.
Okay. Corners and guys, this is kind of interesting too. I'm just kind of looking at this. The Browns don't have a lot of corners signed long term. And I really didn't realize this, not right now. Denzel Ward's 25, and he's due 13.3 on the 5th-year option. Then right now he's a UFA in 23, and if they don't extend him, so they got 1 year with Denzel. Troy Hill's 31 years old, due 2.5, and he's only signed through 22. He would be a free agent in 23. Greg Newsome is the exception, 22 years old, due $1.2 million this year, 1.8 next year, and he's a free agent in 2026, which is good. Greedy Williams, 25 years old, due $1.3 million this year, free agent in 2023. And then we're down to Herb Miller, AJ Green, and Nate Metters, and all these guys are, Herb Miller is signed for 2022 at $895. The other guys are, signed at $825 for 1 year as well, and then they're either exclusive rights free agents or UFAs after that. So the Browns have one corner signed past 2022 right now.
Interesting.
How does that make you guys feel? I feel like we're really strong at corner, but yeah. So however you guys want to tackle that, if you want to go player by player, I guess maybe the first thing would be to talk about Denzel and whether you think, he's obviously going to be here in 22. Big question is, are they going to extend him during 22? So I guess if you guys want to give your thoughts on that first. Mike, why don't you give your thoughts on Denzel and whether you think he's going to be extended?
Yeah, I definitely think he will be. I would be surprised if we don't see a deal before the season starts for Denzel. I've heard that it's right at the top of the list of to do. So I definitely think that gets done. And then now we're up to 2 signed for a little while. The one guy that I'm really interested in, and he's going to garner interest everywhere, is MJ Stewart. I'd love for them to be able to, to bring him back. Yeah, and he's restricted, but he's going to go. I feel like he's going to go where the money goes, and I don't think that we're.
Is he restricted?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize he was restricted. So
we'll get the chance, but I just don't. He really came on at the end of the year. I could be wrong. Some people, maybe it's an inflated worth, and we're able to bring him back on on a deal that's good for both parties. But I just got a feeling that somebody's gonna pounce on him because he just played really well.
Yeah, well, Mike, let's talk about this real quick, because we talked about Dearness Johnson being a restricted free agent on the last podcast, and we talked about what tender the Browns might put on him and that. What do you think the Browns might do with MJ Stewart? Because a corner who teams could look at as a starting corner, or even a third guy or whatever. I mean, they're looking to pay him something.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what kind of tender the Browns would put on MJ Stewart.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. And it's interesting because when you brought up Troy Hill, he signed through this year, but I mean, he's up there in age, and you almost, if you looked at the way MJ Stewart played last year, I think it would be, if they can do it and it's not going to cost them that much money, and they can find a way to pay him. I just think, to your point though, I just think there's a lot of teams around the league that saw his play and are going to look at him as a top corner, at least a number two. But MJ Stewart would look really nice just sliding into Troy Hill's spot next year after he's gone.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you there at all. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Browns do there. Yeah, I could see him putting a tender on MJ Stewart too, definitely. So,
I don't think MJ Stewart is a starting cornerback. He obviously had some nice games at the end of the season, but he's kind of a tweener guy in my mind.
Well, he's a corner. Yeah, he can play some safety too. Yeah.
I mean, he kind of plays both, and he does a nice job in coverage. I'm not really sold though that you look at him as a long-term, starter at the outside cornerback position or at the slot. I like him on the team. I like him as a depth piece. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not sure about where he slots in. The other thing that's interesting to me is I mentioned a little while ago in the draft. Everybody is kind of assuming that the Browns are going to take one of the top wideouts in the first round, and I don't have anything against that. And if that's the way it plays out, there's 2 or 3 guys that I'd be thrilled to have. But I did say that if one of those defensive ends fell, one of those top 3 guys fell, I would jump on him. The other premier position to me that if you're talking about what would make me not take a top wide receiver, there are 3 cornerbacks in Derek Stingley, Ahmad Gardner, and Andrew Booth, who, if you played Denzel's contract out this year, would be ideal guys to jump in and replace him in 2023. Yeah. And now you've got 2 young guys on rookie deals at that premier position, and really in good hands going forward. So it takes away the necessity of paying that huge money to Denzel. And again, I love Denzel, and I'm a big fan of signing him. I think he's the game changer on defense. When Denzel plays like he's capable of playing, the defense is a different animal. But from an analytics standpoint and what makes sense in the draft, that's another potential path that the Browns could go.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense to me, because you just think about how much money you're saving by having your 2 top corners on long-term deals, long-term rookie deals. It's a huge savings. And guys, I was looking up, and MJ Stewart's 27 years old too, so chances of him getting it's not that he's not going to get one more deal. He could get a nice deal, but I don't think anybody's going to sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, at 27 to some great big deal. So It'll be interesting. The Browns could be in play get him back too, potentially.
Have to keep our eye on that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the other guys, I guess it's just going to matter. You know, I mean, I guess it's just going to matter what happens, this season. That, with, I think Greedy played, I think, pretty darn well this season. I think a lot of people were worried about the shoulder, and he banged it up a few times this year. But he kept playing, so I thought that was a good sign.
The other guy who's really played well when he's had opportunities, and I think the Browns have liked him for a couple of seasons, is AJ Green. And there you really do have a outside / slot corner, who can run with the best receivers in the league. I mean, obviously he's not Denzel Ward, but
yeah, he's only 24 years old. He'll make $825 this year, and then he's an exclusive rights free agent in 23. So the Browns have control over him for a few seasons to come.
Yeah. And AJ Green is interesting. When to take us back to the beginning of the show, we were talking about Nick Harris and whether we've seen growth from him or not. Mm-hmm. I think AJ Green is a great example of a guy over the past 2 years that you've seen really, really catch on and start, really upping his game and playing. I mean, if you remember when I can't remember which game it was, but when he came in last year, towards the end of the season, and he got picked on, and to go from that AJ Green to where we saw him at the end of 21, I think we've seen a ton of growth out of him. So it's good to see he's got one more year. We'll see what he looks like, and maybe we lock him up for a little bit longer.
Yeah, that first game he played, he had to cover some number one receiver or something, didn't he? I can't remember who it was.
I can't remember what it was.
And they kept throwing at him, and he actually, they were completing passes on him, but he really didn't look horrible. He was covering the guy. The guy was still catching the ball though. But you're absolutely right. He's grown, and I think the Browns have something in him for sure. So let's look at the safety spot real quick, guys. Browns have 3 safeties on the roster. Grant Delpit, 24 years old, do $1.2 million in 22, $1.6 million in 23. Unrestricted free agent in 24. John Johnson, 27 years old, do $4 million in 22, $8.75 million in 23, and unrestricted free agent in 24. The Browns have a potential out after 23 with John Johnson. The other guy is Richard LeCount, 24 years old, and on a nice rookie contract, $825 in 22, $940 in 23, and a free agent in 2025, assuming he decides to go to meetings in 2022. We'll see what happens with Richard LeCount. Grant Delpit and John Johnson are going to be around at least, a couple more years each, Grant Delpit, I could let you guys talk, but he developed, you talk about guys growing. He's a guy who showed a lot of growth last year. So I think people should probably feel pretty comfortable with Grant Delpit. I'll let you guys talk about John Johnson and Richard LeCount and how you guys feel about the safety room. So not sure whose turn it is to go first. So Mike, why don't you lead this one off?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. Delpit played really well, and with each game he got better. In the early going, it seemed like it might have been a little bit of a struggle, but as the season wore on, he played really well. And what I really like about his game, and I hope we see more of it, is he is fast off the edge when they send him on a blitz, and I'd love to see more of that. In the I think maybe about 6 times I think they might have sent him off the edge last year, and I don't think he got there every time, but but he was pretty successful.
Yeah.
And I thought JJ the third, I thought he was another guy that, for a little while during the season, you were like, this is not the guy that we thought that we were going to get. And I think he played better as the season wore on. And, you have the stupid COVID games where these guys are out and it ruins the momentum of their play. And, he was a victim of that. But I thought he played well. I thought Delpit played well. I would have loved to have seen more LeCount as well as you guys, I'm sure, because I know it was the preseason, but he flashed a little bit, I thought. And I was excited to see what we had in him. And, you alluded to it, late the meetings and whatever else that he might have did, not getting the playing time. But I think we're okay with John Johnson and Grant Delpit. I think they'll be a good combination. I'm excited to see what they can do this year, and hopefully, we'll see Richard LeCount. But I think we did see the end of Rodney Harrison. I know he's an unrestricted free agent. I don't think that they're interested in bringing him back. So it'd be interesting to see if they if they pick up another safety mid to late in the draft, or maybe in free agency. But yeah,
you would think they'd be interested in another safety with wanting to have 3 on the field, but we'll see what happens. So Jeff, what are your thoughts on the safety room?
Yeah, there's a few guys high in the draft that are true free safeties, and I think that's really what this roster's been missing for the last few seasons, is a guy who can really play that position full time, and really give Joe Woods the flexibility to move his safeties around the way he wants to. And yeah, I'm all in on either drafting that guy or finding that guy in free agency to fill out that room. And otherwise I think we're in good shape.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys going the extra mile tonight. I think we covered everything. I think we've covered everything in 2 shows, which is pretty good, I think. So
well, we really don't need to talk about kickers because we don't have any.
We're not talking about kickers.
Hey, you know what I just saw?
Kickers I just saw, and I thought, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say I flipped over the team defensive report for the Browns for the PFF scores, and it's ironic because obviously Myles Garrett was number 1, but 2 and 3 were AJ Green and MJ Stewart. And it's not
no kidding.
AJ Green had he had 176 snaps, so it wasn't like he was in the 500 to 800 range. But MJ Stewart played 328, so that's I just thought that was funny when I filtered that out, and I was like, man, I got to tell these guys, AJ Green, MJ Stewart.
You can never have too many defensive backs, and you can never have too many quality defensive backs.
Yeah,
right. I mean, MJ Stewart not only played well, but he can put a nice hit on a guy, which everybody likes. Everybody enjoys that. So yeah, that's excellent. So, all right, guys, appreciate you hanging in there with me. We're going to close shop up. So Mike, any closing words for the listeners?
Just to you guys, thanks for having me on. It was a blast. Anytime, let me know and I'll jump right back on. And it's going to be an interesting offseason. I'm excited to see who we re-sign, who we might pick up in free agency, and of course, I'm excited for the draft, and I can't wait to get to that point because we're in the silly season now, and it's just I can't do any more Baker Bros and Baker Wars and guys and girls if you're out there. I know everybody feels one way or the other way, and I mean I have my thoughts on it, but at the end of the day, that's way above our pay grade. So it's just enjoy it and see what we have to look forward to in the fall.
That's right. That's Mike Ristano. Follow him at Bonzo1273 and check him out on the Wednesday show on YouTube. That's at Brownie Postgame. Jeff, closing thoughts?
Just to put a wrap on the roster here, coming into this past season, we had a lot of turnover on the defense. The offense seemed like it was the strength of the club based on 2020 results. And the defense, there were tons of question marks. After the season, we now look back and say that the defense was actually the strength of the team in 2021. The offense was very questionable. For what it's worth, we are returning, the way it looks today, every starter on offense next year or in the fall. And we are only returning 5 starters on defense in the fall, the way it looks today. So that's a little concerning right now. We've got a lot of holes to plug on the defensive side. But you know what? Andy Berry figured out a way to do it last year, and they played at a very high level. So let's see what happens this offseason and what kind of pieces get plugged in. It's going to be exciting to watch.
That's a great point. Yeah, I have complete faith in Andrew Berry. This has been the Browns Blitz, and we will catch you next time.